Now, the Asian Development Bank says the region needs infrastructure investment of at least $1.5 trillion a year until 2030. That's twice as much as previous estimates and comes in a new report which says the demand for infrastructure outstrips current supply. Let's discuss that with the ADB's Deputy Chief Economist, Zhuhong Zhuang. Thank you so much for joining us here in the studio. We know that you just released this forecast. I just wonder why you had to double the infrastructure need for Asia in just a few years.
I think there are a number of factors. Firstly, that the region has been growing very strongly, so you have a larger GDP size that would demand more infrastructure investment. And the second is the region has to respond to the climate change mitigation and adaptation needs, so that add further amount. And so these are the key factors we have considered.
Where in the region are you seeing the bulk of this need?
Certainly, China will be the largest because given the larger population and the needs will be the largest. But South Asia, Southeast Asia, and Central Asia and the Pacific also need massive investment in infrastructure.
When it comes to China, we are expecting the National People's Congress this weekend, and economists expect China again to lower their growth targets. Do they even need growth targets at this point?
I think for every country, a growth target will be useful, but the China's growth modulation is with several structural factors. A country become more developed, and then growth rate will come down. This is a part of the development process. So I think certainly 6.5, 6.4% is still very robust growth.
What's your forecast for?
Current projection for China's growth for this year is 6.4%, but we are reviewing projections, and new projections will be released in April.
Are you factoring in the possibility of more rate hikes from the Fed? Is that why the revisions will take place?
This is our annual exercise. We review the growth projections for all the countries. In the case of China, I think the rate, Fed rate hike, of course, it will have some effect, but probably will not be significant.
Will not be significant. Are we expecting rate hikes from within China itself, of benchmark interest rates being raised and more tightening happening in order to deleverage the system?
But China still have a lot of areas, the sources of growth. Government certainly is moving towards more private consumption and the service sectors. This will provide new sources of growth. And then investment, clean energy, renewable energy, these are the key areas where we will see investment, large investment will take place.
When it comes to investment, you consider public investment, but at the same time, private investment. So what role will private investment play in the next few years here in Asia?
In Asia, I think still by and large, the public sector plays a significant role, a dominant role in infrastructure investment. But the private sector also is increasing. For instance, in the case of India, 40% of the infrastructure investment was financed by the private sector. Indonesia and the Philippines and Pakistan, 50% private sector. So private sector role is increasing, and we hope that will continue to increase to meet the region's infrastructure investment needs.
How do you mobilize that type of private capital?
So the government certainly has a number of things to do. So first, I would think first you put the house in order to develop, to have a conducive investment climate, so that investors are protected and macroeconomic stable. And the second is that many countries need to deepen the capital market development, especially the bond market, and so that will provide a long-term financing for infrastructure. And the third area is make a great use of public and private partnerships. So that is will be coming a bigger way, and many countries are promoting that.
When it comes to partnerships, how significant is it that it's not only the ADB and the World Bank anymore, but you also have the China-led AIIB? How do you guys all work together for the progress of this region?
No, in fact, we are working very closely with the World Bank as well as with AIIB you mentioned. For instance, last year we co-financed two projects with AIIB. One is in road project in Pakistan and connecting Pakistan to the Central Asia. The second project is a gas network in Bangladesh. So I will see continued cooperation and cooperation to further increase.
Where should we expect more projects for cooperation this year?
Now, ADB is supporting a number of regional cooperation initiatives, for instance, the Greater Mekong Sub-Regional Program and the Central Asia Economic Cooperation Program. So these are the areas, I think there's a larger scope for cooperation between ADB and other multilateral development banks.
Now, given your assessment...
Of course, the domestic projects also as well.
Given your assessment of what's happening in Asia, where or which countries are doing the infrastructure building right?
Pardon me?
Which countries are doing infrastructure spending or investment right?
You mean the level?
Yes.
So we have, if we look at the current infrastructure investment as a share of the GDP, certainly China is the top. It's close to 7%. And India also is doing quite well, actually. It's close to more than 5% spending on infrastructure as a share of the GDP. And Vietnam also very good. Several other countries in Southeast Asia, for instance, not as high in terms of spending, but they are catching up, and the government are very much committed.
Are any political risks that you're keeping an eye on this year?
I think for the region, what is important is to maintain macroeconomic stability and to support growth by investing much more in infrastructure.